I used to compare with investing in oil and gas companies is like sitting on a train that is, heading towards a big wall that is going to crash, but eventually. But investors keep sitting there, and they point to that. They tell the driver once a year that they should switch the track, and it doesn't. So, but they still point to that every year. That we told them to switch the track, and it doesn't hold. They should get off that train. Yeah. And there's also financial risk to that, because as you come closer, it's going to be crowded at the exits. A lot of investors are going to want to jump, and there are probably going to be financial impacts from that. Stranded assets and direct financial impacts if you stay too long on those runaway oil trains.
Warmly welcome to We Don't Have Time Climate Dialogue Series. My name is Ingmar Rentzhog. I'm founder and CEO of We Don't Have Time. And with me, I have a very interesting guest, Jakob König from Fair Finance Guide. Warmly welcome here.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And the reason why we have invited you is that we are right now focusing on finance, because we need to funnel the money from the bad to the good. And last week, we had a very interesting conversation with one of the largest pension funds in Sweden, AP7, Johan Florén, their head of ESG. We're talking about why they're investing in fossil fuel and Saudi Aramco. Do you really see that it's possible for owners to actually pressure oil companies to don't extract oil? Is it even possible? What is your opinion about this?
I personally don't believe it's possible. No, because it is the core business model, and historically there has not been any example of a whole sector where you have been able to change the core business model.
Yeah.
So the outlook for making these companies transition to become green, or stop extracting all the oil assets that they have. It's not going to happen.
His reasoning is that it doesn't matter if AP7 are selling their shares, because they're only trading in secondary shares that already exist. So when AP7 sell shares in an oil company, someone else will buy it. And if that is a owner without ESG work or anything, it could actually worsen the situation. And he had some interesting studies, scientific studies that backing this up. How is your view? Do we have some? Is it something that is a valid point in it, or how do you see it?
I mean, if companies wouldn't care what investors said, they wouldn't bother too much about when investors are complaining about their business. They would just say, okay, leave, sell to someone else, and we have another owner that wouldn't care. That's not how the companies work. So it has an impact when big institutions take a clear stance, move their money, and publicly divest from a company that refuses to listen to the investor sustainability demands. Because the theory of change here is that it puts pressure, it causes a stigma around that company, which puts pressure on the company and the remaining investors. That that's a usual journalist gig. They look at investors exclusion list and say, okay, this big pension fund has excluded this company, and then they ask another one that is still invested and say, why are you still invested? They excluded the company. How are you acting responsibly? And that puts more pressure on them to either reach results with that company, or to actually also move their money. And the more big established institutions move their money away from companies that refuse to transition, it opens up for political regulation, because it's much easier for politicians and regulators to regulate something when not big financial institutions have financial interest in that activity. And they could even applaud such climate action, political action, because they put their money in the alternatives. So this is like the theory of change. And in the financial sector, there's a lot of institutions look at each other. So if someone takes a step, I mean, we have so many examples in Sweden where one takes a step, adopts a position. We have, for example, Handelsbanken was the first one to adopt a policy against funding fossil expansion. Then half a year later, Danske Bank came up, also announced the same. Now we have 3 banks that haven't done it, and the pressure is really, on them. So it's step by step, and
So I mean, by selling a share, it's not so much that you're lowering the share value. It's more the communication and the signal value by doing it that is creating the change. That's your view, right?
Yeah, and I think because the systematic problem with the financial sector is that everyone invests a little everywhere. So everyone is part of the problem, but since everyone has a little part, they don't feel responsible for that part, for that activity. So it means everyone invests everywhere, but no one takes responsibility, which means that our big companies, multinationals, are owned by a huge number of small investors. They're big institutions, but they all have a small share. But it means that they don't have actively engaged owners that actually help them to transition, direct them in the right direction. Actually, on the opposite, the investor tend to focus on the short-term financial results. So they kind of then by that hold back the company's transition, because you have to invest in transition. And you need the investors, your owners' support in transitioning. But if you have then, 1,000 small shareholders that are not actively involved in that company, then it's much more difficult.
So I want to ask you around who do you see are doing the right thing? Who do you want to give climate love to? Who do you think deserves the climate love in finance?
I would give climate love to the over 50,000 Swedish bank clients that have sent a message through our website to their banks, saying that these issues are important to them as clients. Because we see that it really has an impact. We see a lot of improvements in the Swedish banks. They have far to go on an absolute level, but we see many, many improvements by this increased consumer client pressure. So that's really helpful for, changing this problem.
So everyone can make a difference. It's not that hard.
Everyone, just like recycling, your garbage, this is also a very important part to put pressure on your banks, your pension funds. We try to make it, simple, and we are really thankful that so many people have actually taken action.
But you're not only giving love, you're also giving some warning, right? Who do you think deserves the warning most?
Yeah, we mainly focus on banks in our research, and I would give a big warning to the 3 remaining big Swedish banks, SEB and Nordea and Swedbank, that continue to finance oil and gas expansion. So expanding extraction, which is a violation of the Paris Agreement. It undermines our ability to reach the climate targets today. So this is something that they should follow, Handelsbanken and Danske Bank, that have adopted a ban against that.
Last question. We are in the climate crisis. I just saw the statistic from ocean temperature yesterday, and the curve is kind of going crazy, and we're talking February. Are you optimistic that we will get us out of this situation and start solving the climate crisis?
I'm very worried. I think most people haven't realized how serious it is. But I'm still hopeful, and I would say, and this has changed. I've believed a lot in the, political power and political actors to address these issues. But actually, I tend to look more for that corporates will play an important role. And I see the reason is that they have a business case for acting, because they really see the financial risks to their business. That this will have an impact on their businesses. So And we see a lot of positive, momentum, steps, front-running companies that take the lead and others follow. So, I hope politicians are picking up speed. Currently in Sweden, it's kind of the opposite, I would say. But on the global level, I think, I feel some hope.
I agree with you. And thanks for coming here.
Thank
and
you
lastly,
much.
I want to give you this because you deserve a lot of climate love for what you do. Keep pushing. Thank you.
You too. Bye.